Black CEO breaks down. After little girl hands him a note at dinner. Marcus Delaney sat at the head of a long mahogany table at Valette, Chicago's elite skyline restaurant, the kind of place where handshakes were worth millions and smiles cost even more. The soft clinking of cutlery and the murmurs of power deals filled the air. He nodded politely as his investment team pitched him their latest plan for expanding into Southeast Asia, but his thoughts were already 5 steps ahead. At 46, Marcus was the picture of success: tailored navy suit, custom Oxfords, and a reputation that left boardrooms trembling. The founder and CEO of Delaney Strategic Group, he was one of the most respected black executives in the country. Every headline about him used words like powerhouse, visionary, or untouchable. He swirled the wine in his crystal glass, letting the burgundy liquid catch the light, pretending to listen. His assistant, Gina, caught his eye from across the room and subtly pointed toward the corner of the restaurant. A young waitress was approaching, leading a little girl with wild curls and eyes too big for her face. Before Marcus could process the oddity of it, the girl stopped right beside him. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, extending a folded napkin with both hands. "My grandma told me to give you this." Marcus blinked. "What?" She just looked at him, eyes steady. Then she turned around and walked off, her tiny frame swallowed up by the shadows between tables. He stared at the napkin, unsure whether to laugh or call security. But something about the girl's eyes, they reminded him of something. Or someone. Slowly, cautiously, he unfolded the napkin under the table. Inside was a note written in large, careful, childlike handwriting. "My grandma Margaret is dying. She says you're my father. We're at Pine Haven Shelter. Please come before it's too late." For a second the room fell silent, at least for him. The voices of his team faded to a distant hum. The wine in his glass trembled as his hand began to shake. He reread the note once, twice. Margaret, Emily, a name from another life hit him like a gut punch. Emily Ray, his first real love, his biggest regret. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the wood floor, drawing glances. His team fell quiet. "I need to go," he said, grabbing his coat. "Is everything all right, Mr. Delaney?" one of the bankers asked. Marcus gave a curt nod. "Family emergency." The words tasted strange on his tongue. Family had never been a part of his vocabulary. Until now. 25 minutes later, his black Mercedes pulled up in front of Pine Haven Shelter, a drab brick building tucked behind a strip mall in West Side Chicago. The city lights seemed distant here, and the air held a different weight. He sat behind the wheel, unmoving. His heart pounded like it did before major mergers, but this wasn't business. This was personal, a realm he had long since abandoned. He finally stepped out and walked through the doors. A woman at the front desk looked up, weary-eyed. "Mr. Delaney?" He nodded. "She's been waiting for you." They walked down a dim hallway that smelled faintly of bleach and old books. The shelter director stopped outside a small office and pushed the door open. Inside sat a young girl in a faded blue sweater, her legs swinging from a plastic chair. She looked up, and for a moment the world tilted. Those eyes. Blue, intense, familiar. "Hi," she said quietly. "I'm Sophia." Marcus stared, rooted to the spot. Same crescent-shaped birthmark on her left wrist. Same high cheekbones. Same piercing eyes that had once convinced him to believe in love. "My grandma said to find you," she said, pulling her sleeve up to show the mark. "She said I'd know you by your eyes." He sank into the chair across from her, the weight of realization dragging him down. You're Emily's daughter?" Sophia nodded. Why didn't she ever tell me? She said you were building important things, Sophia replied simply. She didn't want to bother you. 1,000 emotions swelled inside him: anger, regret, disbelief. He barely heard the shelter director re-enter the room, holding a folder. Emily named you as Sophia's father on the birth certificate, she said. But she never filed anything legal. We'll need to verify paternity formally, but, well, the resemblance speaks for itself. Marcus looked at the folder, then back at Sophia. How long have you been here? 3 days, she replied. After Grandma died. 3 days. His daughter had been alone in a shelter for 3 days. I'm taking her home, he said suddenly. The director's eyes widened. Mr. Delaney, I understand how shocking this must be, but there are procedures. Legal steps. I have a legal team that can handle it, he interrupted. But I'm not leaving my daughter in a shelter another night. Sophia looked up at him, unsure. Are you sure you want me? The question struck like a blade. So simple, so raw. Marcus dropped to one knee in front of her. He wasn't good at this. He had no script, no prep. I didn't know about you until tonight. I don't know how to be a father, but yes, Sophia. I want you. Her lip trembled, then a whisper. Okay. As they approached his Mercedes, she hesitated again. This car is big, he smiled gently. You'll get used to it. Inside, she clutched her backpack tightly. Marcus could see the frayed fabric and worn straps. His chest tightened. Back at the penthouse, the elevator opened directly into the vast glass and steel space he called home. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed Chicago like a work of art. Minimalist furnishings in cold grays and blacks framed the silence. Sophia stood in the middle of the room, eyes wide. This is where you live? He nodded. It's big. Too big, he admitted. Let me show you your room. He led her to the guest suite. It was pristine. Impersonal. A showroom, not a home. Sophia placed her backpack down gently, then looked up. I don't have much to unpack. Marcus stood there, unsure of what to say, so he left to the kitchen, opened the fridge. Wine. Protein shakes, gourmet takeout, no cereal. No milk. I'll order food, he called out. What do you like? She patted in quietly. Anything's fine. They ate Thai food in silence. Marcus watched her cut her noodles with a precision that seemed far too grown up. Did your mom teach you that? Sophia nodded. She said manners matter more than money. That hit him harder than he expected. After dinner, she opened her backpack and took out exactly 3 items: a tattered teddy bear, a worn notebook, and a framed photo of Emily. Marcus's throat tightened. Later that night, he stood in the doorway of her room. She was arranging her teddy on the bed, carefully placing the photo beside it. You okay? He asked. She looked up. Is it okay if I leave the light on? Of course. He started to turn away, then stopped. Good night, Sophia. She hesitated. Good night, Marcus. He froze. She didn't know what to call him, and he didn't know how to fix that. But maybe, just maybe, they had time. He walked to his office, opened a locked drawer. Inside was a box he hadn't touched in years. Letters, photos, a watercolor Emily had painted of him once. Laughing, his phone buzzed. A text from his COO. Seattle deal closes next week. Board wants confirmation you'll be on site. He stared at it, and for the first time in his career, he didn't respond. Not yet. He was holding something more important than any deal, a second chance. And her name was Sophia. Morning sunlight spilled across the polished hardwood floors of Marcus Delaney's penthouse, casting long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He stood in front of the refrigerator, its stainless steel doors gleaming like a monument to emptiness. Inside sat 3 bottles of imported sparkling water, 2 containers of truffle hummus, and a half-full bottle of Barolo. No cereal, no juice, no fruit. Sophia padded into the kitchen wearing the same faded blue sweater from the night before, her blonde curls tangled from sleep. "Do you have any cereal?" she asked, rubbing one eye. Marcus closed the fridge slowly. "I don't think so. I usually just have coffee." She nodded, almost like she expected that. "Mom always said breakfast helps you think straight." He tried to smile, but it caught somewhere behind his ribs. That quiet way she brought Emily into the room, like a breeze that never quite left, knocked the air out of him. "I'll make it up to you," he said, grabbing his keys. "We're going out. Breakfast first, then we get you what you need." 20 minutes later, they were seated in a quiet booth at Melody's Diner, a retro joint he hadn't visited in years. Marcus had chosen it for privacy, but Sophia's eyes lit up at the red vinyl seats and the wall jukebox. "Do you want pancakes?" he asked, scanning the menu. "With blueberries?" she asked cautiously. He smiled. "Of course." The waitress came, and when she recognized Marcus, her eyes widened, but she kept her cool. "Mr. Delaney, you haven't been in here in a while." "Trying something new," he replied casually, nodding toward Sophia. "This is my daughter." The waitress blinked, smiled politely, but the curiosity in her eyes lingered. After she left, Sophia leaned in. "You don't have to tell people I'm your daughter if it's complicated." He stared at her, stunned. "It's not complicated. It's the truth." She looked down at her hands. "It's okay. I'm used to being a secret." Marcus didn't reply immediately. The words hit like a punch he hadn't braced for. At the department store later that morning, the contrast between them became more glaring. He moved with practiced ease through luxury, pointing out dresses and shoes with the efficiency of someone used to having decisions made for him. Sophia, on the other hand, hesitated at every price tag. "You don't have to check the cost," Marcus said finally, crouching down to her eye level. "I want you to have what you need." "Mom said needs are different from wants," she replied softly, "and that everything comes with a cost." She was right, he admitted. "But not today. Today you don't need to worry about the price." Even as she picked items, plain jeans, solid-colored shirts, a modest backpack, Marcus noticed she kept glancing at him, as if bracing for disapproval. In the toy aisle, she paused in front of an art kit, paints, brushes, a small easel. "Do you like to paint?" he asked. Sophia nodded. "Mom taught me." She said it's easier than talking sometimes. He didn't hesitate. "Put it in the cart." That afternoon, the penthouse began to shift. Gone was the sterile guest room. Instead, he let her choose bedding, soft lavender sheets, a galaxy print comforter. She arranged her books carefully, lined up her new pencils, and placed the framed photo of Emily beside her pillow. Marcus watched from the doorway as she worked, each movement quiet, but intentional. "She'd be proud of you," he said softly. Sophia didn't look up. "You think so?" "I know so." Later that night, as he reviewed acquisition notes for the massive Seattle deal, a scream shattered the silence. He dropped his tablet and rushed down the hall. Sophia was curled in bed, clutching the sheets, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mom! Mom, don't go!" He froze, unsure what to do. "Sophia," he said gently, "it's just a dream. You're safe." She jolted awake, eyes wide and wet, struggling to focus. "I'm sorry," she whispered, curling into herself. "Don't apologize," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Nightmares are normal." "I dreamed she was walking away," she said, voice cracking. "And I couldn't follow." Marcus swallowed hard. He wanted to fix it, say the right thing. But there was no fix for grief, only presence. "Do you want some water?" he asked. "No, just, can you stay for a little?" He didn't hesitate. He took her small hand in his. To his surprise, she held on tightly. They sat in silence, the city glowing outside the window, until her breathing slowed and her grip relaxed. In the morning, he found a drawing on his desk, a colored pencil sketch of the two of them holding hands in front of the penthouse windows. At the bottom, in wobbly handwriting, she had written, "Thank you for staying." The image cracked something open in him, but the quiet didn't last long. By noon, his phone buzzed repeatedly. Gina, his assistant, had texted urgently. "Marcus, call PR. Story is breaking. The Chronicle has photos of you and the girl." He called immediately. "They have a piece going live tomorrow," said Sasha, his PR chief. "Billionaire's secret daughter discovered. Pictures from the department store, from the diner." "It's out. We need to get ahead of it." He rubbed his temple, staring at the sketch on his desk. "Say nothing. No confirmations, no denials. I'll handle it." Later, as they drove to her new school, Westridge Academy, a private institution with small classes and a strong arts program, he glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Her uniform fit too big, and her blazer looked stiff, but her hair was neatly brushed. "You look very official," he said, trying to sound light. Sophia tugged at the collar. "Is it okay if I'm scared?" That question. So simple. So honest. "It's more than okay," he said. "I'm scared too." They sat in silence for a moment. "Will people know?" she asked. "About me? Maybe. Some people will talk. But none of that matters. What matters is that you belong here, just like everyone else." She nodded, but her fingers twisted in her lap, and as they pulled into the school driveway, cameras flashed from a distance. It had begun. Marcus exhaled. The empire he'd spent 2 decades building was about to be tested in a way he never anticipated, not in mergers or markets, but in something far more fragile and far more valuable. Fatherhood. And for the first time, he wasn't sure if he was ready. But he knew one thing. He wouldn't run. Marcus had faced hostile takeovers, media smears, and federal investigations. None of them shook him like watching his daughter walk through the doors of Westridge Academy for the first time. Her shoulders were squared, but her eyes betrayed a storm. She was trying to be brave, and that alone nearly undid him. He sat in the car for 10 full minutes after the gate closed, gripping the steering wheel. The cameras had started to thin out, but the whispers were gaining momentum. By the time he reached his office, Gina was waiting with a stack of reports and a face pale enough to match the marble in the lobby. "We've got a situation," she said, walking in behind him. "The Chronicle piece dropped at 6 a.m. It's gone viral. Over 4 million views in 6 hours. Sophia's name is trending, even though it wasn't in the article." Marcus poured himself a coffee and didn't touch it. "Tell me the rest." "Several shareholders are rattled. Your board's calling an emergency session tomorrow and—" She hesitated. "What?" "There's a second piece coming, this one with an interview." His eyes snapped up. "With who?" "We're trying to confirm, but we think it's Emily's sister." "Angela!" The name hit like a punch to the chest. Angela Ray had always disliked him, and with good reason. He stood abruptly. Schedule a call with her. Now. Gina hesitated. You sure you want to talk to her before you know what she's going to say? I already know what she's going to say, he muttered. I just want her to say it to me. 30 minutes later, Angela's face filled the screen of his office monitor. Older than he remembered, but the same steel behind her eyes. Well, well, she said coolly. Look who finally decided to call. I don't have time for games, Angela. No? That little girl sure had time to wait. Alone, in a shelter, after my sister died. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. I didn't know. Emily never told me. Angela leaned forward. You don't get to play the victim here. You vanished, chose your empire. You broke her, Marcus. She could have reached out. She did, Angela snapped. You think she didn't? She tried. I saw the letters. Dozens, every year. I was there when she mailed the last one. The one with Sophia's birth announcement. Marcus felt the floor shift under him. What? Letters? Angela blinked, then laughed bitterly. Oh, I get it. You think the world forgot you, but maybe someone made sure you forgot her first. What are you talking about? Angela stared at him. Check your old penthouse mailbox. The one on Delaware Street. Emily sent every letter there. That place was under renovation for 2 years. My property manager... Exactly, Angela said, her tone icy. Ask yourself why he never forwarded them. Then she hung up. Marcus stood in stunned silence. A few keystrokes later, he was dialing his former property manager, Brian Canning. A man he had trusted with managing his properties and his personal life for nearly a decade. Marcus, hey, been a while, Brian said cheerily. Cut the crap. Did you ever receive mail from an Emily Ray about a child? There was a pause. Look, I didn't want to get in your personal business. Some of those letters seemed unverified. I thought they were extortion. You threw them away? I set them aside just in case. But then the mailbox was vandalized and you buried them. Marcus, if this is about the press, I'm not asking, he said coldly. I'm telling you, I want every piece of mail Emily Ray ever sent. If you destroyed them, you'd better be ready to explain that in court. He hung up before Brian could respond. The fury burning inside him wasn't just at Brian, it was at himself. For being so buried in ambition, he hadn't noticed what or who he'd left behind. That night, he picked Sophia up from school himself. She was waiting by the gates, arms wrapped around her backpack, pretending not to notice the cluster of kids whispering nearby. How was your first day? He asked gently. She shrugged. Okay, nobody sat with me at lunch. One girl asked if you were famous. I didn't know what to say. You can always say I'm your driver. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I drew something today, she said, climbing into the car. Want to see? He nodded. She opened her folder and pulled out a drawing, 2 stick figures on a park bench, surrounded by trees and falling leaves. One tall figure was handing the other a napkin. This is you, she said, pointing to the tall one. And this is me. That day. He looked at the drawing, and for the second time in a week, emotion choked him unexpectedly. Do you still have that napkin? Sophia nodded. I keep it in my book. He glanced at her, then reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a folded paper. This is something I drew for your mom once. Years ago, a silly sketch, but she loved it. Sophia held the paper gently, eyes wide. You kept this? He nodded. even when I forgot everything else. That night, as she slept, Marcus stood on his penthouse balcony, phone in hand, staring at the contact info for his board chairman. He had a decision to make. Tomorrow's emergency board meeting wasn't just about stocks or optics. It was about choosing. For once, not between success and survival, but between power and fatherhood. And this time, he was done choosing wrong. Marcus showed up at Westridge Academy unannounced. He'd left his penthouse before dawn, unable to sleep after the board meeting that had gone exactly how he expected. Cold, calculated, and brutal. Some board members had masked their doubts with polite concern. Others hadn't even bothered. "You've changed," Richard Langston, his oldest rival on the board, had said, voice heavy with implication. Blackwell Group needs a CEO, not a single dad on a redemption tour. But Marcus wasn't here to redeem anything. He was here to decide what mattered most. He stood outside the school gym where the student art showcase was being set up, watching through the wide glass windows. Sophia was inside, helping arrange papier-mâché sculptures on folding tables. She moved carefully, delicately, like someone afraid of taking up too much space. Miss Kennedy, her art teacher, spotted him and stepped outside. "She didn't think you'd come," she said gently. "Didn't tell anyone, but I could tell." "I didn't think I'd come either," Marcus admitted. Miss Kennedy studied him for a moment, then smiled. "Well, maybe that's how healing works. One unexpected choice at a time." Sophia didn't see him until the end of the event. Her painting, a watercolor of a lighthouse standing against stormy seas, was one of the last to be shown. As applause filled the room, Marcus stepped forward, clapping slower than everyone else. But louder. Deliberate. Her eyes met his across the room. She froze for a moment, then smiled, small, tentative, but real. When the event ended, she came up to him, still holding her ribbon. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she said quietly. "I had a meeting," he replied, slipping his phone into his pocket without checking the buzzing screen. "I canceled it." Her eyes flicked to the phone. "Isn't that bad?" "Not showing up for you? That's worse." Sophia blinked fast, then reached into her backpack and pulled something out. A framed version of the same lighthouse painting. "I made a second one. For your office." Marcus took it, his fingers tightening around the frame. "Thank you," he said, but it didn't feel like enough. Outside the school, as they walked to the car, Sophia asked, "Are you still going to Seattle?" Marcus hesitated. "I don't know yet. Maybe, but if I do, it won't be for long." "Miss Kennedy said grown-ups always say that," Sophia replied, "but they usually stay gone." That cut deeper than any boardroom jab. They didn't speak much on the ride home, but Marcus was thinking hard. That night, he met with Gina in his study. She had folders, spreadsheets, and a cloud of stress hovering over her head. "You don't want to go, do you?" she asked, before he said a word. "No. But I might have to." Gina sighed. "Then let's talk strategy. We split the leadership. I lead operations on the ground. You stay here, remote and daily. It's unconventional, but doable." Marcus looked at her. "You do that? Take the heat?" She shrugged. "You think I've been sticking around 10 years for the coffee?" He laughed. It was short, but real. "Also," she added, "you should know something." "What now?" She pulled out her phone and tapped into an encrypted message. Robert Hansen filed an emergency custody petition. Marcus sat up straight. "Angela's husband?" "No, Emily's older half-brother. You met him once, years ago." "He's claiming you're unfit to parent, using the media chaos and your travel schedule as leverage." Marcus stood, jaw clenched. He never once visited Emily when she was sick. Never called, never sent anything for Sophia. Gina nodded. And now, he wants to play hero. They were silent for a long beat. "Fight it?" she asked finally. Marcus looked toward the hallway, where Sophia's laughter echoed faintly from her room. "No. We don't just fight it," he said. "We bury it." The next morning, Marcus met with his legal team. The message was clear. Dig up everything. Every receipt, every absence, every lie in Robert Hanson's sudden crusade for guardianship. By noon, they'd already uncovered 3 failed business ventures, a private DUI charge, and an active debt lawsuit in another state. "He wants a court fight," Marcus said. "He's getting one." But beneath the fury, something else was rising. Fear. Not of losing his company, of losing her. Later that day, he found Sophia in the kitchen, trying to make peanut butter toast with too much jelly and a plastic knife. The bread was falling apart. She looked up sheepishly. "I thought I'd surprise you." Marcus smiled and sat at the counter. "Looks gourmet." "You're lying," she said with a smirk. "Only a little." She slid a mangled piece toward him. "So, if you do have to go to Seattle," she began, not meeting his eyes, "can Rebecca stay with me?" "She's nice." He nodded slowly. "She'd love to, but I'm working on something." "What kind of something?" Marcus looked at his daughter. A little girl who had lost so much and was still somehow willing to believe in him. "The kind where I don't leave you behind again." She blinked, not trusting it. "You mean that?" "Yes." And for the first time, he realized he did. Fully. No backup plan. No exit strategy. Just them. The press would howl. The board might revolt. But Marcus Blackwell wasn't going anywhere. Not from her. The courtroom was colder than Marcus expected. Not physically, though the air conditioning buzzed with a constant hum overhead. It was the silence. The kind of silence that settled heavy on your chest, like judgment had already been passed before the judge ever stepped in. Sophia sat next to her court-appointed child advocate, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She wore the navy dress he'd bought her last month, the one with the tiny pearl buttons that reminded him of Emily's favorite earrings. Her hair was neatly brushed, a soft braid down her shoulder. She looked composed on the outside. But Marcus could see the way her left leg bounced under the table, the way she blinked too fast. He wished she were anywhere but here. Across the aisle, Robert Hanson sat straight-backed in a gray suit, 2 shades too crisp, too practiced. Beside him, his wife Janice flashed tight smiles like she was networking at a PTA meeting, not trying to sever a child from her father. Their attorney rose first, presenting a carefully crafted narrative. "Your Honor, while we acknowledge Mr. Blackwell's recent efforts to establish a relationship with Sophia, the reality is he is a corporate executive with an unpredictable schedule, enormous public attention, and no prior experience in parenting. My clients, on the other hand, have raised 3 children in a stable environment with a strong support system. They have a family home in suburban Connecticut, rooted in community and church. What we ask today is not punitive, but protective." Marcus's lawyer pushed back hard, outlining everything he'd done: pediatric records, school enrollment, therapy sessions, art class participation. But the judge didn't look convinced. And when Robert took the stand himself, the real performance began. "I failed my sister," he said solemnly, eyes glossy. "I let years pass because of a stupid feud. But I won't fail Sophia. She deserves structure, love, continuity. Not media mobs, board meetings, and cross-country business trips." Marcus felt the heat rise in his chest. When it was his turn to speak, he stood slow and steady, straightening his tie but never breaking eye contact with the judge. Your Honor, I don't claim to be perfect. I wasn't there for Sophia's early years. I didn't even know she existed until weeks ago. But since the moment she came into my life, I've restructured my world around her. I've deferred the biggest corporate deal of my career. I've traded profit margins for bedtime stories. And I've done it not because I'm obligated, but because I want to. He paused, searching for the right words. Robert talks about love and stability, but love isn't just showing up when there's a court date. Love is staying up during night terrors. It's buying your kid's favorite cereal even when you forget the milk. It's knowing her favorite color changes every 2 days and pretending like it never annoyed you. He turned slightly to look at Sophia. She is not a business transaction. She is my daughter, and I will fight for her every single day. Silence hung again, but this time it cracked. The judge asked for a brief recess before issuing her decision. As the courtroom emptied, Marcus knelt by Sophia in the hallway. Whatever happens, he said, you're not alone in this. Sophia nodded, eyes glassy. Then, hesitantly, she whispered, Do you think Mom sees this? Marcus blinked hard. I hope so. Just then, Gina appeared, holding her phone like a grenade. You're not going to believe this, she said quietly. It's Robert. He's being investigated. What? He has a sealed juvenile record, abuse allegations from the 90s. It was never prosecuted, but it's resurfacing. A reporter from The Guardian dug it up and sent us a tip. Marcus felt like the air had been punched out of him. You sure it's legit? Confirmed with 2 separate sources. His attorney, overhearing, turned pale. If that's true, the petition won't just fail. It'll backfire. Back in the courtroom, the tension was visible as the judge returned. She cleared her throat before reading her decision. In matters of custody, the court must consider both the present well-being of the child and any potential risks that could threaten their stability. New information has come to light during this recess, which raises concerns about the petitioner's past. Robert's face turned a shade of gray that almost matched his tie. This court finds in favor of the respondent, Mr. Marcus Blackwell. Full permanent custody is hereby granted. Sophia gasped. Marcus pulled her close. The Hansons stood frozen. Janice stammered, There must be some mistake. We're family. The judge didn't even look up. So is he? Case closed. As they left the courthouse, cameras began flashing. The press had arrived late but caught the end of it. Marcus's arm around Sophia, the closed file in his hand. Robert exiting angrily from a side door, avoiding questions. Do we have to talk to them? Sophia asked, leaning into Marcus. He smiled. Not today. They ducked into the waiting car, shielded by tinted windows. Inside, she held onto his hand. Does this mean I get to stay forever? She asked softly. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. Her hopeful eyes. Her fear. Her trust. Yes, he said. Forever. He didn't check his phone for the rest of the day. Marcus stood on the balcony of his penthouse, the city lights of Chicago flickering beneath a slate-gray sky. The wind tugged at the sleeves of his shirt, but he barely noticed. Inside, Sophia was asleep, her first peaceful night in weeks. But Marcus couldn't sleep. The custody ruling had gone in his favor, yes, but the past few weeks had gutted him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Fighting for Sophia had torn a hole through the schedule-obsessed CEO persona he had spent 2 decades perfecting. And now, with the media story swirling, shareholders anxious, and the Seattle deal hanging in limbo, the question was unavoidable. Could he truly be both? His phone vibrated for the 4th time in 20 minutes. This time it was Dylan Whitaker, head of the Seattle acquisition team. "We can't keep stalling, Marcus," Dylan said the moment he picked up. "The board is growing restless. Investors want you back on site by Monday." "I gave them my remote oversight plan," Marcus replied, voice low. "Which was meant to be temporary. You've gone from strategist to ghost. You skipped today's transcontinental review call entirely. I was in court. I know, and you won. But what now?" "Are we running a company or a daycare center?" Marcus's jaw tensed. "You're out of line." "No, I'm not. You used to close billion-dollar deals in your sleep. Now you're missing calls and ducking meetings." "I'm trying to find balance." Dylan's tone softened, barely. "Look, no one's judging you for wanting to be a dad, but you need to decide which Marcus Blackwell is showing up for the company. Because right now people are getting nervous." Marcus hung up without replying. He walked back into the living room and stood in the soft light spilling from the hallway. There, resting on the coffee table, was Sophia's newest drawing, a sketch of the two of them standing on a bridge, hand in hand, with skyscrapers on one side and a house on the other. The caption read, "My two worlds." He sank onto the couch, exhausted. The next morning, Marcus called an executive meeting and appeared via video conference. The team looked surprised to see him, but more relieved than anything. "I'll be back in Seattle in 3 weeks," Marcus announced. "Until then, Rebecca will continue to oversee on-site operations, and I will handle all approvals remotely." Silence followed, until one executive cleared his throat. "And after that? What happens when another family emergency arises?" Marcus didn't flinch. "Then we'll handle it, like a real company. One that adapts." After the meeting, he took Sophia out to their favorite breakfast spot, a tiny diner tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore, the kind of place that still served pancakes on ceramic plates and gave kids crayons with the menu. Sophia was quiet for most of the meal, poking at her eggs. "You okay?" Marcus asked. She nodded, then hesitated. "Am I too much?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. "Why would you ask that?" "Because your phone's always buzzing, and you look stressed, and I heard you on the balcony last night." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Sophia, listen to me. You are not too much. You're not a burden. You're my daughter." "But what if the company needs you more?" Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "They might. But I choose you." Every single time. Her eyes filled, and she gave the tiniest nod before blinking it away. "Okay." That night, as they watched a movie, a notification popped up on the TV. Breaking. Blackwell CEO's custody battle prompts board shakeup. Marcus muted it immediately. Sophia noticed. "Is it about us?" "It's nothing important," he lied. But it was. That article had teeth. Sources from within the company had begun leaking internal frustration, citing instability at the top and a distracted leadership. The board wasn't just debating his travel schedule anymore. They were considering a vote to temporarily remove him as CEO. At midnight, he met with Rebecca in his home office. She looked sharp, as always, but her expression was gentler than usual. "They're calling an emergency session next week," she said. "You need to be prepared. I'll fight it." "I know, but Marcus, this might be bigger than you now." Marcus walked to the window, arms crossed. "They don't understand. I've spent years giving them everything, every holiday, every weekend. And the first time I say I need to be a father, they treat it like betrayal." "You've changed," Rebecca said. "And they're still playing the old game." He turned to her. "Do you think I made a mistake?" Rebecca shook her head. "Not even for a second, but the game is changing, and you've got to decide which battlefield matters more right now, the boardroom or the breakfast table. The next morning, Marcus made pancakes again. Blueberries, just how Sophia liked them. She sat at the table, humming softly as she sketched with a pencil. "What are you working on?" he asked. "A thank you drawing, for you." He smiled. "You don't have to thank me, sweetheart." "I know. But I want to." She handed it to him later that day. It was a simple scene. Him tucking her in, with stars outside the window and a soft caption scrawled underneath. "Thank you for staying when it got hard." Marcus stared at it for a long moment, heart thudding. And in that quiet moment between man and child, he understood something deeper than any merger or market trend could teach. Leadership didn't mean dominance. It meant presence, showing up where it mattered most, even if that meant losing something else along the way. Would you like to continue with Chapter 7? Marcus had been in 100 boardrooms, sat at tables worth more than most people's homes, negotiated with Wall Street giants and foreign dignitaries alike. But nothing prepared him for the weight of walking into that downtown conference room on the 28th floor, knowing the company he built from scratch was about to decide if he still deserved a seat at the head of it. Rebecca walked beside him in silence. Her usual clipped confidence was there, but he could tell by the way she gripped her folder that she was ready for a fight. Inside, the mood was cold and tense. 12 board members. All white, all staring at Marcus like he was already halfway out the door. Liam Rourke, the lead investor and unofficial mouthpiece of the board, leaned forward. "Let's skip the pleasantries. We've reviewed your recent conduct, Marcus. The media storm, your extended absence, your refusal to reprioritize. These aren't minor lapses, they're patterns." "I've delivered record profits for 6 straight quarters," Marcus said evenly. "Grew this company from a shared office and a laptop. But now, I take time to fight for my daughter, and suddenly I'm unstable." "You've become a liability," Liam shot back. Rebecca interjected. "You mean he's become human?" Liam ignored her. "This vote isn't personal. It's about leadership. The markets are watching, and right now they're nervous." Marcus paused. He could have launched into a pitch. Could have rattled off numbers, growth metrics, or framed it as a short-term adjustment. But instead, he said quietly, "You're right." The room stiffened. "I haven't been the same. And I won't be, because something changed. And it's not just me, it's this entire industry. You want CEOs who bleed for the job? Fine, but don't act surprised when they have nothing left for anyone else. I'm not sacrificing my daughter to meet a quarterly forecast." Liam's jaw clenched. "Then maybe you're not the man for this company anymore." Marcus smiled, not bitterly, but with something close to peace. "Maybe I'm not." He stood. "Wait," Rebecca said. "Marcus, think this through." "I have," he said. "I built this company to change the game. Maybe it's time I change how I play it." And with that, he left. No fanfare, no apology. Outside the building, the sky had turned a soft silver gray, hinting at rain. Marcus stood for a long time on the sidewalk, hands in his coat pockets, letting the noise of the city wash over him. He expected grief, regret, panic, but all he felt was clear. That night, he cooked dinner for Sophia. Pancakes again, by request. She told him about school, about how she helped a classmate who cried during reading time, and about her new drawing, this one of him standing with a superhero cape, and the words, "My real hero," above his head. "You look happy," she said between bites. "I am," he replied, and he meant it. But the story didn't end there. 2 days later, Rebecca showed up at his townhouse unannounced. She looked wired, eyes wide like she'd barely slept. "You need to see this," she said, thrusting her phone into his hand. It was a live feed. News anchors reporting from outside Blackwell HQ. Employees were staging a walkout. Not just staffers, managers, directors, even junior executives, holding signs that read, "Bring Marcus back," and "Leadership is humanity." This started as a handful of employees in marketing, she said. Now it's spread across 4 departments. Even Seattle's office is joining in. Marcus stared at the screen, stunned. "You inspired people," she said. "They saw you choose something bigger than just money, and now they're saying, maybe they want to work for someone like that." He sat down heavily, the moment hitting harder than the board vote had. "Liam's rattled," Rebecca added. "He didn't expect this. There's talk he might step down." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "My name is Elena Cruz. I'm on the board at Haven Pharmaceuticals. We're building something big, and we need a CEO who understands people, not just numbers. Call me." He looked up at Rebecca. "This is insane." "No," she said, smiling. "This is what happens when you stop playing by their rules." That night, while Sophia was asleep and the city outside softened into rain, Marcus sat at his desk with the note Sophia had once handed him at the restaurant, the one that had started everything. He unfolded it slowly, rereading her careful handwriting. "I know you're sad sometimes, but I still think you're the best dad in the world." It wasn't a business plan. It wasn't a pitch deck. But somehow, it had done what none of those could. It had made him whole. And now, a new chapter was waiting. Not just for him, but for everyone who believed a CEO could lead with heart. The boardroom was quiet, not with the silence of respect, but of tension. The kind that made skin crawl. Marcus had been called back, not by Liam Rourke, who had quietly resigned under shareholder pressure, but by an emergency vote initiated by the remaining board members, now fractured and desperate. The company's stock had plunged. Employee morale had flatlined. And Marcus Blackwell, the man they'd just tried to bury, was now their best shot at redemption. He sat across from the board, not with anger, not even vindication, just clarity. "You need to understand," said Marcia Eldridge, one of the newer board members. "The world is watching. The employees trust you." "The public trusts you. We want to make this right." "Do you?" Marcus asked, not accusatory, but honest. Marcia hesitated. "We're willing to reinstate you full CEO authority. No more interference." "No," Marcus said. It landed like a hammer. "I'm not coming back to clean up your mess. I'm building something new, something where people don't have to beg for dignity at work. Where family matters, where character matters." The room was stunned. And then, for the first time, Marcus truly smiled. "I don't want to rebuild Blackwell the company. I want to build Blackwell the movement." They didn't understand. Yet, the very next week, Marcus announced the launch of the Kindred Project, a groundbreaking venture studio funding startups led by working parents, educators, healthcare workers, and overlooked innovators. His message wasn't flashy. It was simple. You shouldn't have to choose between your humanity and your paycheck. Sophia stood beside him at the press conference, proudly holding a sketch she made for the logo, a tree with its roots shaped like holding hands. Reporters asked questions, some skeptical, some intrigued. But the biggest moment came when CNN released a behind-the-scenes documentary titled "The Note That Changed Everything." It featured Sophia's dinner note, the employee walkouts, the board's downfall, and Marcus's refusal to return to power just to patch up a broken system. The story went viral in hours. Marcus didn't cry watching it. He sobbed, not for the success, not for the recognition, but because it was real. Because the world finally saw what he had seen in that little note. In his daughter's eyes. In every person who had been told to sit down, stay quiet, or wait their turn. The world saw them now. Back at home, on the balcony overlooking the city, Marcus wrapped Sophia in a blanket as they watched the skyline glitter. "You changed everything, you know," he whispered. "I just wrote a note," she said. "No," Marcus smiled. "You reminded me who I was." There was a long pause. Then Sophia asked, "Will it ever go back to how it was? With people being mean because they think they can?" Marcus looked out at the horizon. "Some will try, but that's why we keep building. Keep showing them there's another way." As the screen fades, Sophia's drawing reappears. The tree, the hands, and 5 words in her own handwriting: "Be kind, that's real power." And with that, the credits rolled. If this story moved you, if you believe in second chances, real leadership, and the power of small acts to spark big change, subscribe to the channel, share the message, and help us tell more stories like this. Because sometimes, the right note at the right moment can change the whole world.